so what you guys are looking at right now, this is the ecosystem, the SpiritDAO ecosystem, and based on, so basically, I'm going to share this in the context that if you guys wanted to leverage this ecosystem for your own community, you could do it, and I would be here to support that. But one thing I want to emphasize from the start with you guys is so this is supposed to be, one of the chapters in my book is called Self-Changing Systems, and it's how do we, a lot of the infrastructure today and a lot of the systems we've created, what they attempt to do is they attempt to reinforce the past onto the present, right? So you have this set way of things that were, and you say, well, this is how the structure allows for this. But SpiritDAO is a self-changing ecosystem. Nothing here is sacred. There's no sacred cows. The intent is if something doesn't work, we change it. If we write rules, that work now, but in a year when we have 100 communities, they don't work, we just edit them, right? So there's nothing, I'm not attached to anything. I'm showing you in the context of it is intended to evolve alongside its communities. And basically when you first log in, you get a little tour, and the little tour looks like this. It just says, hey, welcome. These are the core components of the infrastructure. You have an identity infrastructure. Since we are a 501c3 nonprofit, we are a human platform. So we don't allow fake names, fake avatars. This is about people connecting with people. So the identity is a key part of that. And a lot of our infrastructure leverages what you have in your identity to automate emails to you that you might want to, for example, we have Artifacts as our marketplace, and communities can have their own marketplaces. The way when you go to any of these infrastructure pieces, you essentially see what you have access to. And I'll dive into what that means and how that works in a little bit later. But SenseMakers are integrated AI. So we have an AI integrated on all the platform analytics, but also temporal naturalism, the philosophy I write about. And the vision is as more communities come in, we'll integrate other philosophies as well. Chat and forums, just high-level basic communication stuff. Pods, I'm going to spend most of our time talking about pods because pods are groups. This is a grouping technology. We label it a pod, like a whale pod. The ecosystem supports events, both digital events like this, but also in-person events. We have a members directory. Governance. Governance is a key part of this. So initially when I mentioned that a lot of community platforms are really just communication platforms, governance is a key puzzle piece that's been missing from a lot of community infrastructure, is how do we make decisions when we're sharing assets, right? It's one thing just to make a decision about meeting time, but if you're Roger mentioned earlier, you were supporting that community member, right? You were raising funds, and how are you going to delegate those funds? In this case, you were just giving to that person, but in the future, if you were to do something like that again, governance really supports that. How do we make sure that these actions are transparent, they are credibly neutral. That's a fancy way of saying that there's no bias in the system, right, compared to human institutions. Bounties are how we do work. So if I had a community and I said, we're going to host an event and I want someone to go out, design flyers, and then go flyer a neighborhood for the event, I might post a bounty where that person I'm going to pay that person to do work. And they would apply, and there's a whole infrastructure for that. Knowledge bases. So we have an existing knowledge base for how you can, for the ecosystem, but every community can choose to make their own knowledge base, which is available to their community members. So we're doing a lot of outreach presently to intentional communities, established or fledgling intentional communities. And the idea is some of these communities have been around for 30 years. So they have 30 years of governance and documents, etc., that are kind of difficult, for someone who's brand new to even begin to digest. So this gives us a way to make it more easy for them. And then Pulse. Pulse is just what's actually happening in the ecosystem. So I'm going to take a bit of time to dive into each of these just so you can kind of see them. But very briefly, identity is pretty straightforward. It's a profile. We do use, you'll see at the top, the balances here. We use 2 tokens. So I want to take a moment to speak to the blockchain aspect of this. So this is an on-chain app. But you don't need to know a thing about blockchain. This was one of the core things that when I was building this was my core intention, is how do we take all of the benefits of blockchain, which is as I mentioned, the credible neutrality, the radical transparency, the community knows who's exchanging what, it's all recorded, there's no ambiguity about, there's no backroom deals, all that's done on a ledger that is public to the community. So how do we create that while getting rid of all the negative things about crypto, right? The complexity, the scams, etc. Because there's a lot of, crypto has a pretty bad rep, rightfully so. Our two tokens are system and self. System is a 1-to-1 dollar to system ratio. So it's basically an operating function. Now, we are as I mentioned, a 501c3 nonprofit. So we don't sell tokens. There's no token sale. There's no guaranteed returns. I wanted to keep our community currency out of speculation, because many communities that have tried this method before, what they do is they sell tokens. They sell them on what's called a bonding curve, which means I'm the first guy to buy them. So I buy, 1,000 at 10 cents a token. Roger's the second guy, and now they're 15 cents a token. Dean, you're the third, now they're 20 cents. Well, down the line, now they're $10. But what happens is when you buy on a bonding curve, you typically lock up your tokens. So you say, okay, yeah, I'm the first guy to buy them at 10 cents, but I can't sell them for 3 years. But you can imagine what happens in 3 years, almost every time when those tokens are worth $100 and I bought for 10 cents, right? I'm out. And the moment that happens, it destroys the community. Because now all of a sudden, the people who bought it at $50, $60, $70, the token's worth $20 now. Yesterday it was $100, right? So it destroys the entire fabric of what we're doing. So we wanted to avoid that. So we have a 1-to-1 ratio. The nonprofit has a bank account that we share, and there are never more system tokens in circulation than there are dollars in our bank account. Okay, and there's really two separate bank pools. We have an operational pool to fund, the platform costs approximately $100 a month right now to just keep alive. And then the collective system pool. And then self is a time-bound token. So we reward that through direct participation. The four of us do an event. We show up. We host a community event. We're the organizers, right? And the event is 2 hours. Each of us would get 2 self tokens. And the idea is one self is 1 hour. The general philosophy being that all of us in the room are going to have distinctly different perspectives, distinctly different skill sets, distinctly different advantages to bring to the community. But being an embodied human, right, on planet Earth, around the sun, 1 hour of my time is 1 hour of your time. There's no distinguishing. It may feel different, but at the end of the day, that value is that value, that focus and energy. So how do we capture that in a way that can create an alternative economic work? It's kind of like time banking, but with this is kind of taking it to the next level, because we can use those tokens for exclusive event access, exclusive artifacts or products or widgets. We could use them even for governance. So this is something I thought about is maybe there's a term called staking. Staking means you lock up your tokens. So you might say, I'm going to take my 100 self tokens that I've earned and I'm going to put them away for a year. I can't touch them. But if I do that, I get every vote, because in SpiritDAO, one person, one vote. There's no amplifiers. You can't spend more money to get more governance power. So the idea, but should a person who's got 100 hours of contribution to SpiritDAO have more of a vote than someone who has 1 hour? I would argue probably, right? They probably have a greater vested interest in the success. So we might say, you can lock up self tokens and maybe your vote now counts for 1.5 votes or 2 votes, right? We can play with these things. Again, it's a sandbox. I'll pause there. This is, identity. You just fill out your info. You can edit your profile, your interests, your seeking, your openness to connect, any of your socials. This is the memberships and credentials. This is where your people, when you are part of communities here, you can see those in the credentials, and the memberships there's basically 2 types of memberships right now. Proof of curiosity is you download the app and you join and you create a profile. You're just in, and this gives you access to 99% of the stuff. Advocate tokens are people who've donated money to the ecosystem. So you've made a fiscal contribution, whether you've put money into the ecosystem or made a direct donation, you get an advocate token. And we may decide in the future that certain votes, only people who have skin in the game with a certain amount of financial contribution can participate. Maybe not. Again, I'm not making the rules. It's just, it gives us possibilities. And these are the communities I belong to. I'm part of 2 communities. I'm part of the temporal naturalism community, which is the book, the philosophy. And I'm part of I'm the executive director. I'm on the board, right? So this is my executive pod leadership. And then there's also an invitation key. I'm going to speed through some of the other stuff because I spent a lot of time on identity. We have a marketplace like I talked about. You can filter the products by the communities you belong to. So certain products, you can see all the products, or you can say, I only want the ones that are available to me, like my communities. Or you can see the ones that are part of products that are not part of your community. SenseMaker I mentioned, chat and forum are pretty straightforward. But let's talk about pods, because pods is how the government works. So what you're looking at is basically the governance ecosystem for SpiritDAO. Every community is a pod. Subpods. Pods can be eternal or they can be time bound. So that you can create a temporary pod. And the key thing about pods like have their own treasury. So that's like the key differentiator of like why a pod versus a role. Pods have their own treasury. So the people in a pod are able to manage their capital. So hypothetically, the four of us get together, we're going to throw an event. We're going to say that Roger and I are going to be the event committee, and we're going to create a separate pod where he and I write our own rules, and the parent pod might distribute us $5,000, right, into that treasury. And he and I are now responsible for using that money to buy the event, buy the food, etc. So we have autonomy in our governance, but it's kind of restricted by the larger pod. How much money did they give us? What were the conditions that we could spend it, etc. So pods have, when you go into a pod screen, you see the members. This is our default pod. So everyone who joins the app is just deposited into Temporal Naturalism pod, but they can leave or go to another pod. People can apply to pods. So if they're not part of your organization, they can apply to be a part of it. They cannot moderate the forum. They cannot delete other people's posts. They can access our knowledge base, but they can't add content to it. So again, and this just goes down. I'm not going to go through every one, but you can see how it's like everything we build, we just add a little function where you can turn it on or off. So do you want this for your community or do you not? A lot of what I've tried to do with the ecosystem is how do we reduce the overhead of trust? Because, yeah, this is a small group. We know each other. We're friendly. Like, we believe and trust each other. But as efforts expand and as people outside of our immediate circle come into the effort, it becomes more and more difficult to have that just default, I'm absolutely going to trust you 100%. So this allows us to reduce that overhead where the roles will not allow people, because it's all tokenized, it will not allow people to do the things they cannot do. I can also set role requirements, so they can be like, you have to hold a certain amount of currency, you have to have a certain credential. So maybe to join, the Temporal Naturalism Leaders Pod, you have to have course credentials. Maybe we issue courses, and you have to have those course credentials complete. It can be, you have to sign an agreement, etc. Same thing, very similar to the roles. Everything we build is modular. So like a new feature I just added was AI agent. So like this is actually a paid feature. I'll talk about what that means in a bit. But anything I want here, if I didn't want events or I didn't want treasuries to be a part of the member role, I could just turn it off. And it saves and I just turn it on. So basically I can turn on and off what functions I want for my community. I'll share this with you guys because this is kind of an experimental thing, but what we've created is our first premium feature. So I mentioned that SpiritDAO is 100% free to use, and it is. But we are a nonprofit and we do have expenses, right? So what does that look like in terms of keeping ourselves afloat where members aren't just, it's not purely a donation thing. So in this case, you can create community agents, AI active agents. You can train them on a corpus of knowledge, and we charge 25 system for it, and that gives you 30 days. And you can pause it, and it retains your 30 days. But the agents are proactive. So they're in your chat, and they'll respond to questions that people ask them. They'll make forum posts summarizing what was happening the day before. If there's a big discussion, the agent will automatically make a forum post the next morning to summarize it for people and continue the thread. So it's a way to create active community members who are a little bit more automated. And that's just one example. I mentioned the treasury. The treasuries are the big thing, right? You store system and self tokens. You can distribute them to members. You can see a history of transactions. I'll show you the executive pod one because it does have a history of transactions. If I go to our treasury here, you can see that we paid out to Mariah, there was donations in. So it creates a public ledger for your community. We wanted to really deepen that transparency. And so it's a community architecture that allows for all of that. We have plenty of space for us to have open discussion. Events, as I mentioned, support in person, but also digital events. So you can create events, you can manage them. There's an events calendar, so you can see all the events that are happening. And when you add, you can do credentials as well. So we can imagine if we were running a course, if the four of us were teaching someone, and maybe it's a 4-part course, and there's levels to it. If you complete course 1, you can automatically airdrop the users who showed up a token to say, Dean and Roger completed course 1. And this allows them to enter course 2. And maybe at the end of course 4, they become something within the community. It's more about enabling a lot of experimentalism than it is about kind of saying you must do it a certain way. And if you do in-person events, it includes an embedded QR code scanner, so it generates a QR code for the event. So someone shows up, you just have someone with one phone, scan the other person's phone, it checks them in and makes sure they get the credentials for it. I mentioned governance, this is just where you vote, right? So you make a proposal. For us, our process at SpiritDAO is the proposals. If you're going to put something to governance, it has to be linked to a forum thread. So you have to say, like, we've discussed this ahead of time. We don't want just like people proposing things like for no reason. So the idea is like the forum is the space for deep discussion where we find consensus. This is a good idea. Is it a bad idea? Is it something that we want to dive deeper into? You link the forum post to the proposal, so anyone who looks at your proposal can then go and review the forum post. You make it, who's it accessible to? You can only propose governance for your communities or the sub-community that you are a leader of. So if you're a leader of temporal naturalism, you can make a proposal for temporal naturalism and any of the subgroups, but not above it. Only the executive pod can make DAO-wide proposals, just because we want people to kind of cross-pollinate, but also not flood with proposals. And then you just vote from here, for, against, abstain, etc. And typically voting is like 1 week. You have like a week to vote, and there is a minimum quorum of 4%. So people, like at least 4% of the vote, people have to vote, but that can be changed as well. Bounties is straightforward. Again, should I mention bounties is where you do the work. So you can click on bounties. You can see like, oh, what is the description that people want? What are the tasks I have to do? What are the questions I need to answer when I bid on this? And then what happens is on the back end, if I'm the one who made the bounty, there's a bounty management. I can click manage. I can go to the bounty. I can see, oh, here's the overview. Here are the bids, the work that's been done, goals, and then payouts. And with bounties, we use smart contracts to escrow funds. So if I'm going to pay someone in our community $100 to do some work, I have to have that $100 up front, right? And what happens is we lock it up in a contract, and then that contract, depending on how it's organized, it can be milestone-based or just pay on completion. If it's milestone-based, the contract will automatically release the funds once the bounty owner has said, yes, the work is done. So, Dean, you say, Ron, I need some social media posts. I give you the first 20. You say, all right, Ron did his job. Check. It releases $25, right? And then every one I do for the next 3 sessions, it releases an additional 25. Pulse, the knowledge base I talked about. The knowledge base has videos on everything. So if you guys want to explore on your own, because obviously I'm throwing out a lot, and I'm sure it's a lot to absorb, but you can kind of sort them based on how you want to do it. It's all videos, walks you through the app. Pulse is just like what's going on. So you see here, right? Remember, I disabled the treasury and I turned it back on. So it talks like, oh, you can see that it's disabled it. You see TC Townsend joined SpiritDAO. That was about a week ago, 6 days ago. So all of that, and you can sort as well, like by the type. But Pulse is kind of like the heartbeat. It also shows you how much total of our tokens is live within our ecosystem. So if someone burns tokens, it automatically takes it out. And the final things I'll show you guys, just on the bottom, there's a full notifications thing. The app does do push notifications. So if you download it to your phone, like I use it, it will buzz and say like, oh, Roger tagged you in a forum post, or oh, you have an event coming up today, or oh, you have to vote on this proposal. Governance being an important thing, so there's a little governance tab down here. And finally, the donate and claim. There's 2 ways to donate to SpiritDAO, and I probably should add another way in the app. If you go on our website and you donate, it's 100% of a tax write-off, right? It's 100% tax write-off to the nonprofit, and it funds our operations. And it's just a pool. And just so you guys are all aware, the operations costs presently are purely technical. I'm not asking for any money. I haven't asked for any money. 100% of, I didn't mention it, but so technically we're a 501c3, but we're actually organized as a church. I did that for strategic purposes. That may or may not be where we end up in the long term. Some people don't like that. Some people really like it. But the DAO owns self-actualization in the age of crisis. So actually every penny the book's ever made has gone to the DAO. And the book has actually been edited once by the community. And that's kind of the intent, is it's supposed to be a living document that kind of evolves alongside its community practitioners. But if that's not the vibe people want, we can always just make it a normal 501c3. Again, I am egoless in terms of making this work. You can donate in-app, and when you donate in-app, I'll show you what happens. This is how we make our money, because this is a question. How do we fund the thing? So obviously there's direct donations, but when you put money into the ecosystem, so I want to make a bounty. I want to pay you guys to fly around my community for an event I'm doing. You'll see at the top, there's a donation amount. Let me make this a little larger. There's a donation amount, so the $100. The DAO takes, the nonprofit takes 8%. 4% of that goes to our operations, so it just goes into the pool for like the funds. And 4% of it goes to a community fund. I mentioned in the very beginning, the 8 dignities are our nonprofit mission. How are we building public infrastructure for these kind of like global problems? And that's what our collective goal is. So basically, when we fund a pool of funds where the community, let's say quarterly, will decide like, how are we going to allocate these funds? Are we going to build a community garden somewhere? Are we going to, one example, I worked with the city of Austin and a bunch of nonprofits in Austin. And what I did over the last year, we just entered our second year, is I operationalized AI for their affordable housing infrastructure. So the city of Austin had a huge problem, which is like a ton of vacant rentals for voucher-based housing, but homelessness is increasing. How do we have this disconnect? We have these services, but people can't find it. So we built like a multi-layered AI agent where people could talk to it like they talk to a text message with like half sentences. It has over 1,000 units, it's got 20 different data points. And it's been a smashing success. We have hundreds of users a month. Yeah, so there's that. So that's like one example of like what a project these like that addresses housing, which is one of the 8 dignities, right? And then there's a processing fee. That's just Stripe's fee, and that will go down if you pay with an ACH. But then you would get, if you donated this today, you'd get 89.06 system in your account that day. Right, so you get the token, or it might be 2 or 3 days. We do wait for it to process, actually. But I want to emphasize, too, that you can take money out. So when it comes to system tokens, the whole reason we have a 1-to-1 dollar ratio is because we want to create living alternative economies within the ecosystem, right? And ideally, inter-community economy. So if you have 100 systems, you can burn those systems. So you remove them from the supply. And what happens is then that you get an automated email from the board of directors, and it asks you, do you want us to write you a check or do you want us to ACH, right? If you want ACH, you got to give us your info, but we pay you. So you can get paid for doing work in the ecosystem. It's not just purely community money, right? We wanted to like ground it. At the end of the day, like we can't deny our inheritance of the moment. We have to eat, we got to pay rent, we got to do these things. If people are working in the ecosystem, we want them to be able to be contributed for that. Let me pause. That was a lot. And I hope it was resonant, but I want to open it for any questions, comments, critiques you guys may have around like what the ecosystem does, what it enables. Is the vision clear? Is there anything that I should expand upon? All feedback is super welcome.
You said at one time you would look at how you could help us.
Yeah.
I think these 2 men know that a lot of what you're doing, I've kind of made an app that looks like that. I showed it to you, right?
I went to your website. Yeah, I believe so. It was the
Friendship Community Circle work. Well, I can show it to you. Some of the text isn't exactly the way I want it to be and things like that.
Appreciate you hanging out again, Roger. And TC, to your point, your website, Friendship-Community, is like it says, welcome to the Community Union Co-op. It's a co-op of unemployed individuals. That's your first sentence. So I don't know if that's intentional or not.
No, that's what I wanted to do.
Okay. Well, if you need help, I mean, that's an easy change I can help you with. But I could also, basically because I know I was on your email, and it seemed like you had a good group. It seemed like you guys have been fairly consistent. I mean, if there's interest, if this would be of value to you guys, so this would allow you guys to communicate more frequently, more async outside of your additional meetings. If you have thoughts you could share, you basically have your own community. Members would be a part of that. They would have their own chat, their forum. You can host events inside the app if it makes sense. And I would be happy to help you onboard, create that, set the rules you'd want to set. If again, nothing. Based on what I understand of the meetup, you guys can use the platform free indefinitely. You're not really dealing with a lot of assets. This is more of an intentional kind of friendship space, which is awesome. So that's something I could do and support you in. TC, if you need just website help, you could just DM me or email me. I can help you with that. That's pretty straightforward.
Saying what I need help with is where it's not just one more thing to do. It's like when I build something, I show it to my friends and it looks good, but it's just one more thing to do. And they don't need one more thing to do. And I want to get it beyond one more thing to do. I want it to get to where it actually does something.
Yeah, I think that you're like hitting at the heart of it. And it's the same thing I run into, to be honest with this. I mean, I believe that SpiritDAO is a vanguard product. And what I mean by that is like there is nothing like this available today. Outside of this, I have been at the vanguard of like blockchain and just like AI tech since its initiation. I've been in this space for some time. And what I tell people when they talk about that is like, look, ultimately it depends on like what you guys are doing. If the goal is just like we're going to connect once a month just to hang out, then you're probably right. Then this is probably not for you, right? But if the goal is that like you want to deepen your connections, you want to be more contacted in more frequency, you want to have longer conversations in the forums that maybe like an hour of Zoom can't really get into. Maybe you want to meet up one day, or maybe you want to expand your group. This is an infrastructure, an ecosystem that will dramatically, I think, lower the overhead of like getting that done. Not only the overhead of trust, but just the overhead of being able to say like, oh, it's really simple. Through that, I mean, that's how I would recommend it. Ultimately, there's always kind of hesitancy with any new tooling, right? People are kind of scared, but I would kind of make the counter argument, and it's not going to resonate with everyone, but like this is not the time to kind of be scared and sit back because progress is so rapid in nearly every direction that like any alternative besides like a corporatist dystopia Like we have to kind of create those songs. We have to be a part of it. We have to be engaged. I'm a believer in deep engagement in the world is one of the, if not the highest form of spirituality. So that's kind of my position. It doesn't mean we'll matter, but that's kind of the position I take. And that's
with TC's group right now. We're at the point where almost everyone is involved with their own thing. Almost everyone is a leader in their own thing. And we keep in touch with each other on Discord. And when we need to talk to each other, we literally just call each other up, right? Or text each other, right? Basically, we're all just fucking exhausted. TC's desire is to grow past just our kind of insular group who everybody's just doing their own thing, and bring it together where we can all work towards community goals. Is that right, TC?
Well, not quite.
Okay, good. Educate me.
So my analogy is we're at the dance. We're all hearing the same song, but we're all doing our own dance. The point is we're hearing the same song. So the song that I want to play is we're coming to a new way of being. A new way of being human, a new way of being with each other, a new way of dealing with each other. We're moving from competition to cooperation. We're moving from fear to trust. We're moving from what can I get to what can I give. We're moving. And so, yeah, you're selling books. I'm going to push that like hell, yeah. But at the same time, it's like, what are your books about? They're about the things that I love and trust and believe in.
Dean, you had kind of hit on, and this is something that hold on, let me stop. I also grapple with, because I think it's, I think all of us who are forming communities, into TC's point, right? Like, I feel very strongly there's like an emergent component to this moment. Like, there's something that's arising in many of us, and many of us are trying to kind of figure it out in our own way, and some are having more success than others, whatever success looks like, right? But I agree with you, and it is I'll be authentic in my imposter, like one of the biggest challenges I have is like, how do I tell someone who is a leader in their thing that like, hey, you're doing great, but like if we can kind of coalesce this into a more like inter-community infrastructure where you can still be the leader, you can still do your thing, and you can still have your isolated thing. However, by the very nature of being in the ecosystem, you're now like giving your members the opportunity to cross-pollinate, to like kind of co-coordinate with others in the same vision. Because I see that a lot where it's like many of us are working towards, I don't want to say the same thing, but like very similar things in our alternative directions. And that's why it's like when I first released singles, like the book Self-Action, a lot of my efforts were like, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna build my own community in this vision. I'm gonna like sell people on this vision. And it was really important to me for a while. And then I just, after some deep self-reflection, I'm like, why does that matter? Right? Like, why it is like, I'll put it out there as much as I can, but it doesn't matter to me about converting as many people as possible to temporal naturalism. What matters is serving others towards like the same vision of the good that all of us recognize to some extent is like, we presently don't have. So the 8 dignities, the systemic actualization, this is all a way to kind of like put words to a feeling that many of us are kind of undergoing. And like, what does it look like to give it structure? I do think that's important, the structure component, because it gives us like it acts as an attractor, right? It pulls us towards it. So the vision with SpiritDAO, like what I'm going out there is I'm trying to connect with communities, Dean, to your point, who have they're established, like they have their vision of the good. And I'm trying to say like federated infrastructure, the idea that you can completely be self-sovereign, but still deeply connected to a shared mission, a shared vision of the good. In this case, that our moral and material interests are inseparable, right? Like I think many communities, in my humble opinion, they focus way too much on the being and not enough on the doing. Because I think, sometimes like just focusing on the being becomes almost like a veiled escapism. I'm going to like, retreat with my group and we're going to stay here. But the point being is I'm with you. And I think that's a great point about like the exhaustion of it. I completely resonate with that. And I feel that this is one possible way to kind of like coalesce that, to kind of lessen the load on any individual, but more importantly, more deeply engage those within the community. So a lot of times these communities, I don't know if you feel this way, Dean, or if you guys, your other community members, a lot of times like the leader is putting up a lot of the slack. They're doing a lot of the work. They're doing the organizing. They're doing the planning. They're doing all this stuff. And delegation becomes very difficult to do, right? But now within the ecosystem, you have delegation becomes a little bit easier because now you have ways to say like, okay, like, hey, you have async chat, async forums for people are tuning into. You have actual work. Hey, a bounty. And the bounty could be for free. I just need you to volunteer and do it, but we need it done, right? So it can give those people who might otherwise not have the courage to ask directly, like, oh, Dean, how can I help you? But if they see that, hey, they see you made announcements like, hey, we need like 4 things done the next couple months. I threw up on the bounties. If anyone wants to take it just means so much to me. It might give them a pathway to engagement that they might otherwise not have, let's say, taken for themselves. So that's the overlapping vision. I mean, I don't have all the answers. I'm trying to kind of co-create this. That's the whole vision because SpiritDAO is supposed to be collectively governed. If you join today, I have no more voting rights than you. You join today, you and I have to vote on something. It's 1-to-1. And that's how it should be. So yeah, that's a long answer to your short statement. I don't know if it actually answered anything, but it's kind of just like where my head's at with that.
Okay. I'm sure you're familiar with the expression WIIFM.
With, so like, what's in it for them? Is that similar?
Yeah. So if I was going to tell somebody about SpiritDAO, what's in it for them that I can tell them to get them at least curious?
I would say that it is a free nonprofit infrastructure for managing and governing your community. So it gives you a mobile first way to basically handle all community functions from connection to work to governance to events, right? All of that wrapped in one package on your phone, and it doesn't cost you a dime. Our infrastructure is our mission. So I think when we think about any platform, the problem with any platform, especially free platforms, right, is that you are the product. Oh, sorry.
Okay. All right. So let's go back to that very first sentence. Mm-hmm. Tell me it again.
SpiritDAO is a 100% free nonprofit community infrastructure. So it gives you everything you need to manage your community, from communications, events, governance, how to decide what to do, and more, work, right, bounties, knowledge, etc. All of it available in your pocket.
There you go. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, what you want to do.
Okay. Yeah, that's I'm looking for the 15 to 30 second elevator pitch.
I want to say is, you said something emerged. Now, one of my friends, convergence emergent.
Okay.
And the idea is when 2 or 3 more things come together, something different and unexpected grows out of it. And so between what you're doing and what I'm doing, something very different could come out of it. Because see, for me, when I look at what you're doing, it's too rigid. It's got too much government. And what I'm doing is more like fluid, heartfelt, and trust-oriented. And I hear Dean saying right now, it's like, okay, don't trust that shit. I mean, I know that we live in a world that's not trusting. I think that I could use more of your governance and you could use more of my fund.
Well, I appreciate that feedback. I mean, I think I'm super open to whatever that means in terms of taking shape. I'm certainly open to the structure component. At least from my kind of vision perspective, is like once you get past a community of like 10 people, the flow becomes much more difficult to maintain, in my experience, because you just have too many moving parts where they're not in your immediate circle. And that's like where I think SpiritDAO really comes and like really serves to elevate music. It might not, I encourage small groups to be a part of it. It's really for like when you need to make decisions that are going beyond like your immediate circle of friends, then it becomes a little bit more complex, because to your point, BTC, right, you have the dynamic of relationships creates new things. I have this conversation with my wife all the time, right? It's like there's her and I, there's our child, so there's 3 relationships, but then there's like the relationship she and I have, the romantic relationship that is like a separate entity that must be maintained, right? Then there's the parental relationship, and then there's so many dynamics that can just form. So I'm with you, and I'm open. I mean, ultimately, for me, this was just an opportunity to kind of share with you guys, like something that's out there, something that I think would benefit your efforts. And to Dean's point, if the other community members are kind of all doing their own thing, what could it look like? It could look like a single group that then has subgroups within it of each of the own thing. It could be each one is their own, pod independently, but then there's cross-pollination through events and things like that. There's no wrong answer.
I call it circles and circles.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
On my site, you can create your own circle. And then we're connected to to Sarah's group, and she's got something going on in Michigan, and we're connected to Faye. In other words, like each person is connected to something else, and I look at it as we're going to create a mycelium network, and each little group, like our little group, is going to be a node. And it's not that we necessarily are doing something together as much as we're supporting each other in what we're doing done. I want to see Dean succeed, and I'm going to do whatever I can to help him succeed. I have a friend, Jamin, he wants to run for council. I want to do what I can for him. My friend Cadden wants to start her own community, and I want to see that happen. I want that so I make the newsletter. You saw the newsletter, and that's where my focus is right now, is making that newsletter. And so I want to get my app up and running so I can put the newsletter on.
But TC, I think this hits to Dean's previous point. One thing, I'm not clear based on what you've described, because you said your app was still in progress, but so I'm not clear if it actually worked, if you have that infrastructure already, to build the circles within circles and all the rules. But if you don't, the counterpoint would be well, why reinvent the wheel? What I've built is basically a community-owned federated infrastructure with all the things that you're talking about building already done. So it's not that you shouldn't do it. It's just the question that I would actually ask yourself is, why would you? Because if it's already done and you don't have it built, again, I don't know. I'm asking. I don't know that you do or do not have the ability to make circles and make those circles have separate rules and make them have separate governance, etc. But if it's already done, then great. But if it's not, okay. So this is this is local.
Yeah, it's done. But see, that community union co-op now is supposed to be circle of friends. Here's all the people. There's all the people, and then they can chat back and forth. But see, to them, it's just one more thing to do.
TC, what is your specific desire for showing us this right this second?
For him to know that I've already created. In other words, he's saying, he thinks I'm trying to create something now. I'm trying to share something. So I shared it.
Okay.
This is what I was telling you about circles. Here's all the circles, and you can go into each circle, or you can go down this way and look at what the circles are about. And each circle, there's its own group, and it's connected back to the bigger circle. And like I say, in the hopes that someday it will be a network. Anyway, and then when you say that your governance, well, what we have is suggestion, and you make a suggestion, and then from the suggestion you can go to the discussion, and then here's all the different suggestions that are being discussed. And then from there you can go to vote, and you can either agree with what the outcome of the discussion, can agree, disagree, or abstain. So that's basically what we're doing. And it's why bother? There's only 8 of us. So
yeah, so this is great. I mean, ultimately, this is up to you guys. If you feel like this infrastructure meets your needs, then I would say stick with it, right? I think the difference is, it seems like the apps are doing some similar stuff. SpiritDAO does enable you, when you have a vote and a proposal, for example, it does enable you to kind of create, paths to action immediately. So, for example, one of your proposals said, we should do more proactive outreach. But I'm curious, you guys voted yes. What was the outcome? Who volunteered to do what? What were the bounties made, right? What resources were pooled to support that? These are the kind of things that, when we think about governance, it's got to be more than just consensus and just yeah, we should do it. Because okay, did it get done? I don't know. But yeah, I'm not, TC, ultimately that's up to you guys to decide. I hear your point. I wouldn't say, here's what I wouldn't say. I wouldn't tell your community hey, we're going to use my platform and SpiritDAO. That's just repetitive, right? You pick what you think is ideal and go from there. But yeah, I think full circle, it's kind of to Dean's point. I don't have an answer for how to convince someone who wants to be a leader of their own project and kind of do their own thing, not to do their own thing. It's more this is a federated thing where all of us can kind of do our own thing. But as we do our own thing, we are collectively participating towards a shared goal, which has real material impacts in the world, which is kind of the big thing that I'm trying to move forward. So there's no right or wrong answer. Ultimately, that's what you guys want to decide. But I think if it's of interest.
What I think, I need to study this recording. And what I'll do is I'll make a video out of this recording. In that process, I will learn, and I'll see what it is what you're doing that works. Whether I want to join your group or incorporate some of your ideas into what I'm doing, I don't know. For me, I need to do more study before I do anything. I want to say thank you.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. thank you both. I really appreciate it. Dean, thank you for being the new person in the room to kind of hang with this. I know I get excited, as I mentioned, and it can be complex. But the same offer, Dean, to you goes the same thing I made to TC. If this is resonant with you and you think that your effort could specifically benefit from it, I'll throw my email in the chat. I'm always happy to connect one-on-one and support any sort of onboarding. Or even if you guys just have questions, it's just Ron at SpiritDAO. You guys just want to chat, I'm available async. I live in the app. TC, you're already on the app, so you could always DM me if you wanted to in the members section or right in the chat. But happy to kind of coordinate with you guys in any way, shape, or form that makes sense or not make sense, right? But if you just want to be a sounding board for different ideas, that's also fine. I appreciate that you guys are forming community in this time. I appreciate that you're kind of getting people together. So that's a really positive sign for me. And if I can support that in any way, do let me know. Then we can take it from there.
I'll let you know right now. I think that you're a resource that I want to be aware of and connected to. And I don't want to feel like I'm taking advantage.
Oh, I'm not worried about that. I'll say no.
I shoot from the hip and clean up the mad. Some of the things you said, you might help me look at what it is that I got going on, the issue that I'm having, but I can't get that. Dean is a very good friend. He's going to be he's the spotlight this week in the newsletter. He facilitated bringing on to me a feeling of I really like myself.
All right. Well, I have to go. I had a stroke a couple years ago, and I'm only dealing with about 80 to 90% of my brain. And I get tired very easily, especially when I'm trying to process new information.
Yeah, well, Dean, I really appreciate you showing up, man. This has been wonderful. I appreciate you both for having me. Thank you, and have a wonderful week. And again, guys, my contact info I threw in the chat if you need it, but don't hesitate to touch base if I could be of service. All right?
You got
it.
Have a good one, guys. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.